Blog Talk Radio. Chatting with Nat is a podcast for independent women seeking to speak their truth and to break down barriers. We host honest conversations that help to guide and empower women. Speak your truth and set yourself free. Let your voice be heard. Hi everyone, this is Chatting with Nat. Yes, it's Natalie Jean. And today we have the honor of having singer-songwriter Ariadne Mila. I didn't want to mess up that name because it's such a beautiful, authentic name. Ariadne Mila is a Filipino-American artist and songwriter. Having taken classical piano lessons as a child, she soon grew to love the lyrical expression and vulnerability of artists. Her chill pop sound is influenced by artists such as Lauv, Nesbitt, and Lover era Taylor Swift, as well as the artists she grew up listening to, including Michelle Branch, Vanessa Carlton, and Avril Lavigne. Ariadne continues to hone her craft and will continue to release more music in the coming months. Let's give her a round of applause. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm still alive in this crazy thing we call a pandemic. It's
I know. Oh my God. I feel like I haven't been out in the real world.
I know. It feels like that, doesn't it? It's crazy. It's truly crazy. So how have you been doing during this pandemic? How have you been feeling?
It's been interesting. I think there's been, amidst all the stress and the uncertainty of it, because there is a lot of, just that general feeling of anxiety. And like at the beginning of the pandemic, it was just so anxiety inducing to like do normal things like going out and getting groceries and stuff, because your sense of safety has definitely been rocked a little bit.
Right.
But but I think in terms of like the silver linings of this, it's been really good to just have the time to kind of settle down, and almost like things that I felt like were really important before don't seem as important. Going out to eat less and spending less money, which is great. And yeah, it's been, and interestingly enough, I had never co-written with other songwriters until the pandemic. And I think it's mostly because like the norm now is Zoom co-writes or Skype or FaceTime. And that wasn't really a thing before. So a lot of the people that I work with now, like we have never met in person.
Wow.
So,
yeah. That's a new phenomena, I think. Did you, during the pandemic, did you do any live streaming?
I did a couple, like, I went live when I had a song release, or I do like little interactive things on social media when I would have music out. Mm-hmm. And so those were interesting ways to engage with people and engage with listeners. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. I tried it out for the first time with B Squared Management, and sometimes I had a bunch of people there. Sometimes there were a few people there. Sometimes I was singing to myself, but that's okay. It allowed me to practice my music because the brain's going dead, and sometimes I can't remember. I'll tell you, I will perform and I'll mesh all my songs together, and I'm like, well, they don't even know. It still sounds good whatever I'm putting on there. Sometimes I just like to throw in words to see if anybody's paying attention. But yeah, it was cool to be able to live stream, because it let us use our creativity somehow in some way. And now, with things opening back up, we still have that avenue to be able to do those things. How long have you been in the music industry?
As far as making money, which streaming, like I've made like, it's not great. But in terms of like how long I've had music out, I've had music out since maybe, I think 2019 was when I had my first single out, and I was doing it under a different artist name. It was just my first name, and that's a whole other thing of like figuring out, you know, what, because Mila is actually my grandmother's name. And but when I went by just my first name, it like there were like 7 other people with just that name, and so it became really confusing. But that was the first time that I had music out, and I was actually like releasing songs. I started doing some gigs. Like I did the whole, like when I was in college, I would do the coffee house thing if there was an open mic or something. I did some local gigs around Austin, sometime 2018, 2019 also. Yeah, so
awesome.
a few years.
So I like to ask this one question of everybody. So during the pandemic, you know, there's a lot of things that we can take away from it. Obviously, there's pros and cons, believe it or not. The cons, as we know, people got sick, and some people died, and some still have residue from being sick with COVID. And there's so many tragedies last year. But the pros of the pandemic is that, you know, climate animals were able to breathe because we weren't out in the streets. Yeah. Mother Nature was like, oh, I can breathe now. Nobody's here. Families were out and about walking around. You never really saw that too much. Around my area, you didn't see that too much. And now it's like, it was really weird to see all these families together. I know that some of my friends, colleagues, associates were like, they cut back on work because they realized they were missing out on family time. Some people have quit their jobs. They're just like, oh my gosh, I want to do something that makes me happy, something that makes me more fulfilled. Because one of the things the pandemic has done is that we know that life is short, but it actually shouldn't be short. So a lot of people are taking advantage of that and just saying, you know what, I need to find that thing that motivates me. Just like me, I was working for a job for 15 years. In May, I decided to quit to do music full time. Crazy, yes, because I have no money. But I'm going to do it because I have to try, because music is my passion. Grace. Now, a couple of years ago, I decided, well, I really thought about myself as an artist and decided I want to be an effective player. I want to do more social message impact songs. I'm still doing the other type of songs because I want to get my music in film and television. Social impact songs are not in there. So during the time that we had downtime, so to speak, did you have time to reflect about who you want to be as an artist, how you want to be perceived? Did you change your branding? Is there something that you want to do? Did you really think about all those things?
I did. And it's interesting that you mentioned kind of like, you know, wanting to create music that has a social influence as well, because I do release music. It's under a project name called This Is Fine, and we just released our first single on Women's Equality Day, which is the 26th of this month. And that was a really cool way. I think the pandemic, I feel like there was 2020 and 2021 as well was like just packed with lots of kind of things that really just forced us to reflect on how we were doing things and how we were thinking about things, like especially in terms of race and all of that. And so activism was something that I really thought about a lot more and became a lot more involved in, and just thinking about all of the social issues. And so that was a really cool way for me and my other collaborator, Dalen Brinkley, of the band Citizen Badger. And we both found that when we would talk and co-write, like what naturally we ended up talking about was just everything that was happening. We would talk about the racism issues. We would talk about climate change. And, you know, when we were writing during the election time too. And so we were talking about that. And so that became a really good way for us to just like express our thoughts and kind of combine our activism with our songwriting. And that's something that's really important to me, because I do want to create music that helps inspire positive change, even if it's in a small way. And so that's something that I kind of thought about as an artist. You know, how do I combine music, which I love, and kind of help to use it as a force for good? And so that's really important to me. And I also did a lot of, I guess I would go down like the Spotify rabbit hole. I did a lot of like thinking about what kind of sound I wanted, and I discovered a lot of new artists that I didn't even know existed pre-pandemic. And it was just because, you know, in the early stages of the pandemic, when we were in our quote unquote lockdown,
right?
I was home all the time. Yeah. I was just home and I wasn't going anywhere, so I would just listen to music all day, and I would find a song that I liked and go to that artist and find other songs. And I think it really helped me kind of think about what kind of vibes and what sounds and what elements I wanted to incorporate in my song, because I think for a long time I thought I was just going to be like acoustic, because that was what I had always done. And I loved Michelle Branch and like those kinds of singers when I was a kid. And so it was almost like, kind of wish fulfillment of like this childhood dream. But I think as I got older, like my taste changed a little bit. They evolved a bit. And so I think the sound that I have now, it was kind of like a combination of the things that I found I liked as I got older and a little bit of that kind of melodic element of the acoustic pop that I liked. So yeah, I did a lot of reflecting, like both in terms of the kind of message that I wanted to put out and also like the sound that I wanted to create.
Awesome. I love that. Reflection is good. How would you describe your music?
So I always say chill pop. I feel like that's kind of like I meet some other people and they have like these really neat like descriptions of their songs, and I never know how to describe my music, but I think it's like kind of a chilled out pop. Like it's it still has like, it's still groovable, but there's also like there's melody and it's a bit mellower. And I think I personally feel like it's one of those types of songs where it works as like background music if you've got like a little get together. Not that we're doing that right now, but hypothetically, or like it could be like good background music if you're just like chilling at home or going for a long drive. So I think I like some songs that kind of like pull elements from different genres. And yeah, I'm a big fan of like music that kind of straddles the lines between genres. And so yeah, I would say so that kind of pop-ish, chill pop-ish.
Chill pop-ish. Hey, why not?
Right?
There are many people that need to be chill right now. Out there in the world, out there in our crazy, cray world. What was it the music industry made you gravitate to it? What was it, a specific performance? Was it something that you heard? What was it that was like, oh my gosh, I have got to be music because music is me?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of things. And I grew up in my family, and it's not just my family. If you're Filipino, you have a karaoke machine in your house. You just do. And that's like the thing. Everybody parties. We all love to sing. Everybody in my family sings. I am not the only. And so it's funny because when they're supportive of my music, but they also can do the exact same thing if they wanted to.
Right.
And so, but I think it's just, I grew up in a musical family, and that became like a way for us to spend time together. And, when I would think back to memories and times that like I remembered fondly, or times that, I would look back on and be happy, it was almost like I would remember the song that I associated with that memory. And so like the first time I went to see the very first Harry Potter movie, like I remember the song playing in the background when I was on my way home from that and stuff. And so I think music has just become a way for me to songs have been attached to different memories of my life. And so it's been like kind of a sentimental thing. And I think just noticing the way that it was so present in my life and the way it affected me. And just, it was a way for me to express myself. Songwriting is really like a safe space for me to kind of say what I want to say. And so, yeah, I think it's just that self-expression was kind of like, yeah, I have to do this.
So then that intertwines to the next question. What do you love about being an artist?
There's a lot of things. I love creating. That's first and foremost my favorite thing. I love being in I was going to say the studio, but I have my home studio now because I do all of my stuff at home now. But yeah, I just love, I love writing, and I was actually an English major in college. So I love words. I've always loved reading, and I think what I love about songwriting is it combines the writing and the music. So, and it's interesting because if you take out, like if you just read the lyrics on a sheet of paper without the music, you might interpret it slightly differently. But when you add the music and you see where like the hits are and where the music kind of swells and, you know, pulls back a little bit, that almost helps like, not alter the meaning, but it helps you interpret it in a specific way. And so, yeah, I love creating and I love writing about my experiences. I think it's really cool when I write about something and it resonates with someone else, or someone says, you know, it gives them the feels, or even if they interpret it in a completely different way than what I wrote it, I still think that's cool. I think it's like a neat little way for when an artist or when a listener kind of resonates with the song of an artist, that's like a neat little way of them communicating without actually communicating. So I just love creating things. And I think the pandemic has been like, it kind of forced me to take a step back and focus on just creating instead of focusing on like, you know, how people, like what everybody else thinks or keeping up with certain things. I think it really allowed me to just create the things that I wanted to create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You said something that rings very true. You know, during the pandemic, I did a lot of webinars and music conferences and stuff like that. I did something on TikTok, and they were like, "Oh, you need to do 5 videos a day." One, who has time for that? But
right.
crazy. But the one thing they said that registered with me was that, you know, the most popular videos on TikTok are the ones that are very authentic. Like people are craving authenticity. They want the real artists. It's okay to like, you know, mainstream artists and stuff like that, but they like art. The people are gravitating more towards artists that are very honest in their music. That that the artist is writing something about some personal experience. That's I think a lot of people love Adele. Not only can she sing, like this girlfriend, you feel like you could pick up the phone and talk to her and say, "Yeah, this dude was a piece of doo-doo to me, this, that, and the other," and you know, and she could just relate. So, how important is it for you to be authentic in your own music?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, in my personal experience, you know, the artists that I also work with that are, you know, they're also doing it the indie way. I mean, it's like that's the only way to be, you know, like how we don't know how to create music that isn't authentic or that doesn't say something that like has been floating around in our heads all the time. So yeah, I think it's so important. And it's also, I think it's empowering too, because it kind of, it's like this affirmation that like the way you are with, you know, what you have and what you can do and what you have to say, like that's enough. You don't have to try to be something else. I think that's a really empowering feeling to know that, like, you know, people crave authenticity, and that doesn't mean perfection. That's two separate things. And so it kind of takes the burden of perfection off of you, and it just allows you to just be yourself.
Amen to that. Now we're going to play your song, Ariadne. We're going to play your song, Ariadne. It's called Not In. What is that about?
Yeah, so that is about it's about staying true to I guess at the risk of sounding trite, like staying true to yourself, but I think in the context of like relationships, it's kind of absolving yourself of the guilt of like leaving relationships or any kind of situation that doesn't serve you anymore. And I think for me, whenever I used to kind of make decisions or say no to things, I always felt really guilty, and I felt like I was letting this other person down, even though that meant putting my needs last. And I think, you know, especially as women, like we're conditioned to, we're always inundated with these messages, like women have to be helpers, women have to be sacrificial, and yeah, and every time I see, so like on Mother's Day or when it's somebody's birthday and like, you know, people are like, oh, my mother, she sacrificed everything for me, she gave up her dreams, and I'm like, I mean, I'm glad that she loves you, but women should not have to give up their entire selves to, you know, to be valued. And so, yeah, I think it's just, I think that was something so ingrained in me. But when when you put yourself last and everything, that's really harmful, and you lose yourself, and you end up not doing things and living in a way that that you feel suits you. And so Not Then is really about like just this kind of reminder to that it's okay to put yourself first, and that, you know, it's worth protecting your peace, that you can say no to things without feeling guilty. And yeah, that like you can, self-love is the most important thing, and that shouldn't be something that you have to sacrifice.
Amen to that. All right. Well, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, and then we're going to play the song.
Hi, this is Nikki Chris, and I host a podcast called Mixin' It. Mixin' It focuses on women in the music, entertainment, and the performing arts. Our goal is to provide an avenue for industry veterans and up-and-coming artists, musicians, engineers, and producers to showcase their talent. Listen to Mixin' It on Monday Music Madness at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Sim Radio Network.
Love that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I mean it rings true for so many reasons. Like I'm always posting inspirational quotes about loving yourself, and people have a truly hard time with that one because in our society, you know, loving yourself seems to be like a conceited thing to do. But you can't do anything in life without loving yourself, because everything that you put out is your own energy. So you don't want to put out energy where you hate yourself, because that doesn't make any sense, because that's what you're putting out, and nobody's going to go for anything that you're doing out there. and the whole thing about putting yourself first is integral to anything. And I was just talking to somebody else earlier today, Naomi Sky, about relationships, and even relationships, whether it's friendships or boyfriends or whatever, or girlfriends, whatever. You have to learn not to always put yourself last. It has to be supported. Both individuals have to be supported in those relationships. And if you keep, being the person that's always giving, in the end, you're going to be resentful, Yeah. And, in my own life, I've had to learn about those things. And I'm glad you made the point about women and how we've been taught to, stand back and not give ourselves value. And that is so wrong.
For sure. It's a hard thing to unlearn too, because I think so many women attach their self-worth to like how much they sacrifice and give up to help everybody around them. And there's nothing wrong with helping, but it should not be at your expense,
Exactly. Now, who, dead or alive, would you like to perform with, and why?
Ooh, that's really tough.
Dead and alive.
Just perform, or like perform and or collaborate, like with
both.
Okay. I think alive would be Max Martin, because his songs have been everywhere. He like any pop song I have ever heard, it's like whenever I talk to people about Max Martin and they don't know him, I'm like, you've probably listened to a lot of music that he wrote. So would be him, would be one of my dream collabs. Taylor Swift would be another collab, because I just respect her as a songwriter. I think she's great. Lin-Manuel Miranda, because I think he's a genius.
Oh my gosh, he is.
He is. Oh my goodness. I love his style, and just his lyrics. They're so good. He's so just like such a wordsmith. So I would love to collaborate with him. Dead would be, I think Prince would be such a great collaboration. That would be like one of, like another dream collab. Ella Fitzgerald would be interesting. I've just always loved, I love her voice. And Aretha. I love Aretha's voice. I think, but I don't know and it's when I mention people like Ella and Aretha though, and I think, and I'm like, but what could I possibly add to them? Like they're already, like what can
You just never know. You just never know. You pick some really good people. Piggybacking off of Lin-Manuel. Now, when I saw Hamilton, I actually saw it on Disney Plus, and I mean, I was so in awe. And I'm thinking, I'm in awe of everybody that was in the production of that. And obviously his writing is fundamental. But I was just, how the hell can anybody remember all those lyrics?
Oh my God, yeah.
And to put on the same production.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I did yesterday.
And so there's one number, and I think that they kind of like measured the words per minute, and it was like a record, and it was Guns and Ships, and Lafayette's part was played by Daveed Diggs, and he is insane. Like I don't know how he doesn't get tongue-tied doing that really fast.
I mean, I watched that and my face. Somebody watched and videotaped me. My face was my mouth. And what's great about it is that the entire production, you were in it from the beginning to the end. There wasn't a moment where like, okay, I'm bored, da da da. No. Lin-Manuel made sure that you were engaged, and then it made you really want to go out and learn about Hamilton. Because after I actually went and Googled Hamilton. About him. I think creatively he's a genius. And he deserves all the accolades that he got for Hamilton and everything else that he's doing in the world. what is your writing process like? And if you ever have writer's block, how do you deal with it?
Yeah. I love, one of my favorite things when I meet other songwriters or when I attend like conferences, there's always, or usually there's like there's one little session that talks about like how to get over writer's block, and people have the coolest things they do. And I'm always looking for ways to get over it, because it is a thing that happens, and it happens, I sometimes feel like it happens more frequently to writers than it does to people who don't write, for
Right.
a living or regular. And so, but yeah, my writing process, it varies. It's sometimes it's lyrics first, and sometimes it's music first.
Right.
Sometimes I will have a melody in my head first, and then I kind of find the words to kind of fit in there. And then the melody will inevitably alter just a little bit because just of the words that you choose. So it kind of changes a bit. Sometimes the melody and the lyrics happen almost simultaneously, which is like a weird experience. Personally, that doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, I'm like, okay, I think I'm onto something if they both happen at the same time. And so, yeah, it kind of varies each time. And I think the most important thing for me is just to set aside some time every day to write a little bit, like 15 minutes, just free write, and just kind of like write down what's in my head, almost like journaling kind of, but, without, it doesn't have to be complete sentences, just get something on paper. And that kind of jogs, it kind of like, it jogs your creative engine, I guess,
Right.
kind of helps get things going. And even if I don't come up with anything that's like song worthy that day, like I can go back and be like, oh, this is a cool idea, or I can use some bits of it. So, yeah, the most important thing I think is like to write. And I kind of think of it as like, it's similar to the philosophy that people have when it comes to like working out or mastering an instrument, which is like small progress every day is kind of better than trying to do like 4 hours of practice once a week or something. Like if you practice, like 15, 20 minutes a day, every single day consistently, like you're going to strengthen that muscle, or you're going to, get better at that instrument. And it's the same thing with songwriting. It's just a muscle. It's your brain. So I'm just kind of exercising that creative muscle.
It's interesting because when I songwrite, I'm still old school. I use paper and I use a screen, and I'll just throw words I find interesting that I want to use. Sometimes I'll just look around me. I have a theme. I know what I want to write about. Well, how am I going to make a difference? That's what is always in the back of my head. Like right now, I'm trying to write a holiday song, and I stared at the screen, and I put some words on it, and I'm going to see my music producer on Wednesday. I haven't done. But yeah, I'll just throw things around, and I normally I like to start with a chorus and then work around it. But I have to say that the best place for me to create music is in the shower, and then I forget what I started singing in the shower. That's why I'm going to create this gadget that's waterproof, that you can just have it in the shower, start singing, and it records it. Because, everybody's like, well, you can bring your phone in there, and then no.
That's risky.
In the shower. One friend actually told me, she said it's probably because the acoustics in the shower are really good, and also the water. And, water is very cleansing and very soothing and calming. It's because you're by yourself and you feel free, and that's probably why songs come to people so easily in the shower. Is there a crazy place you've ever created a song, like came up with an idea?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to think a little bit.
It could be in a forest, could be on a bus, could be, you could have had a song idea. Like one time I had a song idea. I needed one more song for this album. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what to write about? And then I walked by a bus stop, and I saw a map, and that was it. The song was called Map, and I created it from there. So
that is so cool.
Yeah, I try to things a lot.
Yeah, I think so. I started part of a song. I was for an old job that I had, I was having to travel a lot, and I was going to Asia all the time. I was in Singapore, and I was sitting at this rooftop, like, bar type thing in Singapore, and I was just thinking, like, and I remember just feeling really homesick. And I love Singapore. It's beautiful, and it's so clean. I one time got kicked out of a store because I was holding a Starbucks drink, and I could not have a drink in the store. I couldn't be drinking it. So, and like, you'll get fined for things like eating in public or chewing gum on the train. I don't know. It's really weird, but it's a beautiful city, and the people are really friendly. But yeah, I remember just sitting there, and I was like, I'm in this really nice city, and I love it here, but I really just want to go home. And so I ended up writing this song called Home, and it was about, you know, me wanting to just kind of craving the familiar and wanting to be back home. I don't know if I remember the words to that song. It was a long time ago, but I have it written down in a notebook somewhere.
Yeah, that's another place I have things written down all over the place.
Yeah.
So we're going to play your song, Yours Mine. Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, so that one, it's a love song. I think when I wrote it, I was thinking about the concept of soulmates, and I was doing all of this, like, kind of thinking about random things, because I wrote this during election week, and I normally read the news all the time, and I watch it, and I try to, stay abreast of what's going on. But that week, I just could not. It was way too stressful. So I was like, this is going to be my week where I, like, just completely avoid the news, and I just watch all of these, like, guilty pleasure type shows and just anything to distract me. So I was watching Witches of East End, and there were these two characters where, like, one of them had, like, this weird curse where she, like, never died, and she always, like, was reborn, but in, as the same person, but she lived different lives. And her partner, basically, they always ended up finding each other, and they were kind of essentially, I guess, soulmates. Like, they would always just be drawn to each other and find each other. And so I was playing with this idea of, like, the concept of that, of, like, soulmates, where, like, is what would that feel like, and how would you know when you found them, and is it really kind of like a fate thing where regardless of what happened or what life you were in, like, somehow you would always find each other. So that was kind of what I was thinking about with this one.
I like it. Let's play it.
Fire
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What is the one thing you wish you had known before you got into the music industry?
The one thing I wish I had known, I think the one thing I wish I had known is that it's okay to be particular about the things you say yes and no to. So one of my friends who's a songwriter as well, she had shared this bit of advice with me, which is if it's not a hell, I was going to say it's not a hell no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I think that, especially because I was younger, and so, I didn't have as much life experience, but when I was younger, I would kind of say yes to things, to things that maybe I wasn't really feeling, or like if, I finished the song and there were still things that I kind of wanted to change, or I wanted different ideas, but if the other people said, you know what, it's fine, I would just kind of be like, okay, never mind. And I think this time, it took me a little bit of time to learn that, like, you're not being demanding, you're not being bossy or anything like that. Like, you can vouch for what you want. You can say no if it just doesn't align with your goals and your values. And that just opens up the door for you to, it just makes room for the right things to come to you, and the right opportunities and the right people. So yeah, and if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I think that's applies to a lot of things outside of music, but it's been really valuable too within music.
So true. So true. What is a message or quote you like to use on the daily or monthly or yearly that motivates you?
Ooh. Not a, I guess kind of a quote, which is just do it. And every time I think of that, I think of the Shia LaBeouf video, and where he's kind of like in front of a green screen. But I think that's like one of those things sometimes, if like it's a day where I'm feeling like, you know what, I don't know if I'm gonna, like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to record this thing today, or like I'm not feeling my best. Like, it's still okay to try, and if it doesn't work out, if it's really a bad day, no harm. Like, it's fine. I kind of, the just do it for me is kind of like that motivator to, like, you know what, don't be afraid if you do a bad job today, because that's not a reflection on who you are. And just because you didn't do great today doesn't mean you're a bad artist. It just means that you had a bad day, and everybody has that. So I think that's one of those things is, it's a little quote that kind of reminds me to, like, just go for it. And if I don't do great today, that's okay, and I can try again tomorrow.
I love that because it's just so true. It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
People understand in the music business and everything is subjective. Sometimes one group will love your music, another group won't. That's just the way it works. In the end, what's most important is that you love what you do. You love what you put out. Like I was telling somebody else, if you can't listen to your song on repeat for an hour, don't put it out. Because I know I can.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah.
I can listen for hours, and I will turn my stuff on. I'll look at my YouTube videos and say, "Oh yeah, girl, you do your thing," and it's me. You got to love yourself. There's no point in doing this stuff if you can't love the stuff that you do.
Right, right.
The energy that you are, and that's the energy that you want to come back to you. You don't want the negativity to come back to you. You want love to come back to you. So remember to always, in everything that you do, I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
sorry, sorry, what was that? I think I cut out. It's raining here. So.
You were going to say something?
No. I was just saying that I agree with you with everything you said. I think that's so true.
It's just that's just the way, and I think that once you have that mindset, you can be successful in anything that you want to be successful in, and you screw people, and I say that in the nicest way possible. You know, you can't live your life for other people. You've got to do you.
Right.
That's the end of that.
And,
you know.
Yeah, and in the end, you're the one you're the one that's living with the decisions you make. So you have to make them for.
Amen. You just said it. You just said it. Well, Ariadne, thank you so much for being on Chatting with Nat. Hopefully, one day soon we can do an IG Live. I think that would be a lot of fun. We'll schedule that sometime soon. I've learned a lot. I'm going to follow you. I'm not going to stalk you, but I will follow you and, listen to your music because I think it's awesome. I love your authenticity. I like the fact that you speak your truth and you know who you are. And I think a lot of young ladies and older women will be inspired by you.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. And thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you so much. Now, everybody, that was singer-songwriter Ariadne Mila on Chatting with Nat. You can find her on, her website is tap.bio/@Ariadne.Mila. She's also on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and if you didn't get that, you just Google her. Google is such a great thing. That's why I'm getting a t-shirt that says Google me, because we can't remember everything that we're on these days. It's just been crazy. So check her out. I love her. You'll love her too. Until next time on Chatting with
Chatting with Nat is a podcast for independent women seeking to speak their truth and to break down barriers. We host honest conversations that help to guide and empower women. Speak your truth and set yourself free. Let your voice be heard.